If you're a fan of The Sopranos, you know this man's work. He has a brand new book out called On Locations: Lessons Learned from My Life on Set with The Sopranos and in the Film Industry. Mark Kamine, good morning and welcome to WDHA.
Good morning, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here in
One,
my home state.
yeah, you're from just up the road, really, about 20-25 minutes from where WDHA is, just outside of Morristown. Although, actually, right now, you're not in New Jersey, you're in Thailand. Tell our listeners
I
about that.
Yeah, we got here at the beginning of November for the prep on the third season of the White Lotus. We did the first season in Hawaii, the second season in Sicily, and now we're in Thailand. So I'll be here another 7 months or so, making the bigger and better third season, 8 episodes coming up this year.
One of the funniest lines in your book, and it comes fairly early on. There is nothing worse than cruising across Midtown at midnight, only to turn down the 30th Street entrance to the Lincoln Tunnel and find yourself in a lineup of late night travelers, instantly causing yourself to wonder what the bleep you did to deserve this. As someone, Mark, who has sat in there at midnight, boy, did I feel your pain.
Yes, it was so disappointing to have worked, the usual 12 or 14-hour day and feel like you're cruising home in 30 minutes and uh, to get another hour tacked on at the Lincoln Tunnel. I mean, that's commuting.
As the location manager for The Sopranos, how important was the location for where you did these shoots?
Oh, it was crucial. I mean, you know, and Sopranos to a higher degree of authenticity, I guess you could say, than most shows. I mean, in on movies and TV in Hollywood, you tend to go where tax credits are available, where things are a little cheaper that could pass for whatever you're meaning to the show to be about. So I've filmed, New York numerous times, New York set movies in Boston and Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and Atlanta. I once shot for Chicago winter in the late spring and summer in Atlanta. So, it's but David Chase on the writer and creator of Sopranos insisted that we film the New Jersey locations in New Jersey, even at the cost of losing the tax credit that was in action in New York state. So, at the time, New Jersey does have a tax credit now for films, which gives you money back when you work there, like a 20%, 25%, 30%, it varies. And during Sopranos years, New Jersey didn't have a tax credit, but David, wouldn't shoot a suburban house in New York if we could find the right one in New Jersey. And that's mostly what we did.
Yet, oddly enough, New Jersey substituted for a variety of places outside the area, including Madison's Drew University, which is right around the corner actually from where I live. It was so cool seeing it, but it really did look like a New England college.
Oh, yeah, it has. I mean, it's a great school for a film production like ours, where we spent one day at Drew and got, I think it was three, it's definitely two, but it might be three different college looks out of it. Meadow and Tony are on the college tour, and while Tony discovers a rat, someone in witness protection that he's tracking while he's taking his daughter around. And it was set in Maine. David Chase's daughter was, I think, or had just prior to that season toured colleges, including some colleges in Maine. So David had written uh, Colby, Bodwin, and Bates into that script, and we filmed it all at Drew University.
You mentioned finding a New Jersey home, and obviously North Caldwell was where the Soprano home was. Why
Right.
that house? Because there were any number of locations that you could have chosen. Why that particular home?
I mean, I think the scout who I believe found that was a guy named Bill Barvin, who was a New York scout and location manager, and a great one who was one of the guys that I learned from on my first job. And I think that David, like wanted not a quaint or, cozy house for his mob boss. It was up on a hill, which made sense as far as tone, like they always say, like mobsters want to sit in with their back to the wall in the restaurant so they could see what's coming at them. And that's kind of this prospect of the house. I know that in the pilot, there were, if you look back at that, there were security lights up on top of the house and, to light up the approach to the house so that he would see what's coming. Um, I mean, the funny thing about that is that after the builder of that house, who was the owner of the house, was a very particular guy, very, you know, um, proud of his work, did a lot of expensive building around North Caldwell and other areas, and built that house and took meticulous care of it. And the security lights on the roof, when I came back 8 months later, when the show was picked up to talk to him about coming there periodically, it would be Tony's house. He said, "No way are we letting you come back here because it was a zoo and the security lights caused leaks in my roof that took me months to track down and fix." And I mean, it was like, this is not happening. And, eventually we had a lot of time and I made a few different visits and we talked him, the owner, into doing it. And I think he was happy. I know he was happy that he did. I mean, he got a lot of money out of us. He got a lot of mileage with his friends. He used to invite them over when we would film there. I mean, and it was, for the most part, a really decent relationship as far as um, us getting along and seeing eye to eye and him trying to jack up the price season by season. I mean, you can't totally blame him. I know David was many times thinking he would have that house burned down or blow up so that he could get us out from under it.
In
But
a
yeah,
in a day and time where computer graphics have gotten so good and you can you watch the making of whatever film and you realize how much is done with computer graphics and green screens and what have you, how important is it? Like, you're in Thailand right now, you could probably shoot that just about anywhere. How important is being on location to the making of something like White Lotus or like The Sopranos?
it's funny. I mean, those two shows in particular, and they come at sort of early in my career and maybe at the end or something. And but they are more specially location driven than most shows. I mean, I'm sure, like, Breaking Bad, what would that be without the desert and all that? But these two shows and their creators, Mike White, in the case of White Lotus, he wouldn't go to one country or a backlot and shoot it for a country. I mean, this show, he immerses himself. We scouted early on for this season, and Italy. We scouted Italy and France along the coast, and then Mike went and lived there, and this past year lived in Thailand for months while he was writing, until the strike came. And so it's crucial, I think, to him and the way the people are, and he learns from the people, and and I think that, look, we will cheat locations here on this show. We might shoot the Bangkok airport in Koh Samui, and we might combine different aspects of beaches and hotels to make up our main hotel, which will primarily be one hotel. But there are and it happened last year too, So, but the country, I think, is crucial, and for Sopranos, the state of New Jersey was crucial. Like,
Going
it
back
was
to
not.
going back to The Sopranos for a second, early on, you mentioned that the cast doesn't have much range once you move beyond, and you mentioned four of them: James Gandolfini, Edie Falco, Michael Imperioli, and Drea De Matteo. And for the most part, a lot of these people were relatively unknown to most of us. Yet the
Yeah.
character development, not just for those four, but every single one of them, even someone like Steve Van Zandt, who didn't
Mhm.
necessarily have a whole lot of lines in the show, but managed to steal every scene he was in. The
Yeah.
character development, Mark, was extraordinary for this series.
Yeah. I mean, there was great writing going on. And I think, like, I think that even for actors who maybe weren't trained like those actors you mentioned and didn't, you know, didn't study it and didn't experience it at all. I mean, I'm a little bit unfair probably, and I could start thinking of other actors who actually, I mean, there were great actors that came in and out, obviously. And then of the core crew, yeah, I felt like maybe the range wasn't the same, or the kind of ability to get to a depth of emotion that those four in particular, and some others, Livia obviously, and the kids had their moments, but the writing was great, and it did, I think, a lot of work of rounding those people out into very full characters that you were totally, and people had their favorites. I mean, it's kind of like with the Beatles, you have your favorite. Maybe not the new generation. That wouldn't make
I think they know
sense.
who the Beatles are. I do want to point out, you mentioned in the book you were not there for the filming of the final scenes, the final episode.
No,
So you
no.
watched it as we did as a fan. What were your thoughts?
Well, I read the script, and it was, and I talk about in the book how the production, I mean, it was such a successful show, and it got bigger and bigger, and the production grew and grew. So when you narrowed back down to just one episode happening, there were a lot of people shuffling for a little bit of territory near David. And I got a job that I was trying to move out of locations and assistant production managing into towards producing. And so I got a job, and I knew that the people in my department would be fine without me. They probably would have been fine without me for the last 2 years of the show. But so I had read the script, and my job started, and I was gone a couple weeks, or a week before shooting started on the final episode. And then of course it's months later when the show comes out, and and I was watching the show night by night, just like everyone who watched it, which was a lot of people. And when the finale, when the screen cut to black at the very end, my wife and I were like, did the cable go out? Did something, what happened? Because he cut to black, and then the titles didn't come up for a while. So
Mhm.
it was, and I knew the last scene was at Holsten's in Bloomfield, and that there was a crowd of people, and it was kind of a regular family dinner, and it was maybe a little creepy there, but I knew what happened. But when it cut out, I thought, where, like something else, ominous was going on. I mean, I think it was intentional on David's part. Obviously it was intentional. He did it. It wasn't a mistake. So, but I think it had that eerie effect for good reason.
You and your wife, my wife and I, we all had the same reaction. What did he check the connection? The book is
Exactly.
called On Locations: Lessons Learned from My Life on Set with The Sopranos and in the Film Industry. From your work with the Sopranos and now currently with White Lotus, Mark, it came on. Thank you so much for your time this morning here on DHA. Best of luck with White Lotus and the book as well.
Thank you, Jim. I really appreciate your time and getting on the air out in New Jersey and everywhere else you go. So it's great.